Ex-prisoners, how are killers of child sex offenders treated? Story 1. I'm not an ex-prisoner, but I've spoken to lots in my previous profession. Vigilante justice might get you respect amongst the fellow prisoners, but the inevitable threat to your length of stay in prison makes it less attractive. I don't know many are willing to increase their sentence if caught just to stick it to a PDF file. Of course there are exceptions. Wow, I wouldn't have guessed that. I thought people might be more willing to take that risk for the respect. It's wild how self-preservation really comes first in there, huh? Story 2. Had a sentence for a year when I got framed. They did find out the guy who framed me and did the crime, so I got out early. One of the inmates was in for killing child sex offenders. He was treated the exact same as a real killer. Edit, I was half asleep, so I meant killer, not real killer. Really, that's surprising. I thought maybe there'd be a different vibe for someone like that, but it's crazy to hear he was treated just like any other killer. Guess the prison rules are pretty strict no matter what. That must have been a wild experience. Story 3. XCO here. Knew a couple inmates that were incarcerated for murdering child molesters. They're treated like any other murderer. Prison isn't a TV show. That's wild. I guess it makes sense that they're treated like any other murderer. Prison life is way more complicated than what we see on TV. Story 4. I'm a lawyer and I've been doing prison legal aid all over the country for about 25 years. Sadly, child sex crimes cross all economic boundaries, so we get a lot of middle and upper-class inmates who are accustomed to filling out paperwork and dealing with bureaucracy who utilize those legal aid services. That is to say, I've represented shitloads of these guys, more than any other category of crime, by far, so I know far more about their place in prison than I would like. In my experience, all the honor among thieves stuff that people like to talk about, where child molesters are treated poorly by other inmates and inmates who attack them are lionized, is all bullshit. I've had clients who have done absolutely abhorrent things to vulnerable people, women, the elderly, their own family members, and children, but other inmates don't care. Child molesters don't get any particular respect, nobody's looking out for them, inmate or CO, so if they're targeted, it's because of that, because nobody will care or retaliate. It's not some kind of rough justice, it's just a predator taking advantage of vulnerable prey. Part of the confusion stems from attacker inmates claiming after the fact that they were motivated by their victim's criminal history of hurting children, but that's an excuse to try to mitigate punishment, not the actual motivation for the attack. I had a guy years ago who attacked another inmate and insisted it was because his victim was a child molester, but the guy who got attacked was locked up for killing somebody while driving drunk, nothing to do with children. So, to finally answer the question, no, I don't think inmates who kill child molesters get any kind of special treatment or respect, any more than they would for killing any other inmate. Wow, dark world we live in, huh? Story 5. My partner's brother went to prison for killing the man who molested him as a child and groomed my partner. He was treated pretty well here in Australia. The biggest guy in prison walked straight up to him and told him no matter what, he's got his back. And then he woke up from his dream, right? No offense, but I don't believe this one. Story 6. I live in the South. Friend ex-partner touched one of her kids. She called the cops and took all the right AVs to get the MF out of the house. Dude was in jail 12 hours before being moved to PC, protective custody. He got the shit beat out of him. I guess my homegirl had friends who were guards and put the word out. Damn, you never know who could be a PDF file these days. Story 7. Actual real-life ex-prisoner here, in U.S. military and federal prisons between 2007 and 2010. The same as everyone else. Not sure how much more info I can give you. Murderers are murderers. The guy that cooked up a bunch of meth in his lab exploded, killing a wife and kid? That's Nick, he's a good spades partner. The guy who is doing 20+4 bank robbery that stabbed another inmate? That's Eric, he loves soap operas and WWE. The little guy that raped a woman, but he claims it's spousal rape so it doesn't count and he shouldn't be there. That's Derek, he's also got a tattoo rig and will ink you up for a few books of stamps. Conversely, Mike was on to catch a predator, and everyone calls him Cookie because in his episode, he came in and took a cookie from the plate on the counter. No one really talks to him, he just hangs out with the other child molesters, kiddie porn addicts, and other sexual deviants. Prison isn't television. Story 8. I ended up in a New York State prison for 3 years for a low-level crime. Not a sex offense, by the way. After a quick stay in reception, I was transported to a place called Groveland Prison. Low-level security. This was like a college dorm with free movement. You literally sign out of your dorm and go lay in the sun, lift weights, play some sort of outdoor sports, walk to the library, etc. The place was filled with sex offenders, drunk drivers, thieves and other inmates with not much time to do. For the most part everyone minded their own business because we all wanted to go home soon. The only ones that really didn't do well were the inmates that have served a shitload of time and are on the tail end of their sentence. So they get sent to places like Groveland to finish out their time. When you come from a maximum security with your own cell and TV and are suddenly thrust into dorm-style living, it's not a good combo. A very hard adjustment for most of them, but hey, they want a chance to go home soon too. But yeah, all of us were mixed in together and for the most part you know what every is in for. Again, we minded our business because we were all short-timers and wanted to get the hell out of there. Basically all prisons are different and you shouldn't believe everything you see on TV or movies. That's super interesting. Didn't expect it to be so diverse at Groveland. I get how long-timers would have a hard time adjusting, though. Definitely not what you see on TV. Story 9. Not a killer, but I knew a guy who was doing time in a minimum security prison who was in the same unit as a convicted sex offender. One day the dude just told us he was ready to retire and calmly got off his bunk. He was fully dressed like he was going to the yard, beanie, jacket and shoes laced up. He took the beanie off his head and put the lock from his footlocker inside and twisted up the beanie so the lock was tightly wrapped inside. Dude then proceeded to walk over to the child molester and collapsed the side of said inmate's skull with a few smacks of the beanie lock club. He clobbered on the dude until the guards OCD him and went with them peacefully. Everyone said that he did it so that he would get put on at the prison they were gonna transfer him to. I have no idea how that worked out for him. But the general consensus of the unit was that the guy was a good dude for beating up the molester. Nobody ever talked bad about dude again, lol. Wow, if that's true I have a lot of respect for that guy. Final story number 10. Not a guard, but I know a former guard here in Australia who confirmed that any child offender is seen as the lowest scum in the system and often have to be protected 23 hours a day. Those who kill them are often seen as getting even, especially if it involves their child. There's a good amount of sympathy for them. A year or so ago, 2 of the most well-known child killers in the country had boiling water mixed with sugar poured on them in jail and suffered from severe burns. It seems the offenders actually got a positive response from the public when the story broke because the men are so hated, even from the guards. I believe one of the men accused the guards there that day of turned a blind eye to it, if I'm not mistaken. Child offenders are labeled as rock spiders here, for a vulgar reason I will let you research yourself, and those who either arrest or kill them often have scorpion insignias/tattoos to show this natural enemy of the rock spider. It's not the same as just murdering anyone here, often they will get a reduced sentence and early parole too. Edit. I'm not talking about vigilantes in prison as much as predators killed by potential victims/family members. Vigilantes are highly discouraged, but some guys have nothing to lose and seem proud of their crimes in court. This guy sums up that perspective. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to check out some of the other videos we have up on the channel.